Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. We will just take a couple of minutes to wait until everyone who wanted to join joins in. I will start the video now. My name is Dimitri. Hello. And you can click on the shared screen view. Thank you for... If you want to see what's happening on the screen itself, where I will be explaining how this tool and this method works. And also feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A session of Zoom and to write something in the chat as well. So we will just take a couple of more minutes to wait until other people join in. If you have any particular requests that you would like to look into, please leave them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer your questions. The way that I would like to do this session is that for the first 15-20 minutes, I will explain how you can create and develop ideas using text network analysis and Infra Notice tool. And then we'll have a Q&A session where you can ask me some questions if you have, or where you can also share some ideas that you're interested in relation to this approach. Hello, Coin. Nice to see you too. Thank you. Just take a minute more to wait until everyone joins in. Maybe for those of you who joined for the first time, I will explain a little bit what Infra Notice is and how it works. It's a network analysis and visualization tool, as you can see on your screen. It visualizes any text as a network where the words are the nodes. So I'm clicking them here. And the co-occurrences of those words are the connections between them. When you represent a text in this way, you can build a text network graph based on this approach. And this allows you to see some patterns inside your text, how the meaning emerges, what are the main terms. So here they're shown bigger on the graph. Which words tend to co-occur in the same context. Those words are closer to each other and have the same color. So this provides you a very nice visual overview of what the text is about. And then you have the analytics panel here, where you can see the main topics, which are calculated based on this approach, and the most influential elements. And there's a lot of other stuff here, which I will talk about later when I demonstrate a new use case I wanted to share with everyone today. So I think it's a good moment to begin. Let's start from this. So the main idea today is to show how you can use text network analysis to create and to develop new ideas. I prepared a really nice use case, which will demonstrate to you how you can use this approach on any data of your own or any idea that you would like to develop by yourself. I started from the topic of artificial intelligence because it's something interesting to everybody and also it's interesting to me. So I'm going to demonstrate to you the workflow that I usually use with Infra Notice to generate ideas. But again, it's not only limited to Infra Notice tool, you can just use it in general as a brainstorming strategy. The first thing that I like to do, so maybe it's time to show how to do it step by step. You log in Infra Notice, and then what you can do is to choose the Generate Insight app here. Then open the editor panel and type in whatever it is that you want to start writing about. So for example, artificial intelligence. I added into the graph, the words are the nodes and the co-occurrence is the connection between them. Directly, I can go into the Insight tab and see what Infra Notice proposes to me as the next action. So here it's recommending to me to make the connection between these two topics, artificial intelligence and artificial. So maybe to expand a little bit the notion of artificial. So I can even write now, what's the relation of artificial to natural? Is there a natural intelligence. Okay, we're adding graph words. Maybe I can also throw in another idea. How is artificial intelligence different from natural intelligence? So as you see right now, I'm just brainstorming, writing some ideas inside. It doesn't have to be a finished text, or it doesn't have to be too coherent. Now we're just throwing things in to have a general overview of what we're interested in. And Infra Notice is providing us a live recommendation on what we could think about in relation to the ideas we have. So for example, here I can expand a little bit more this notion of artificial and say that, let's say, I'm interested in the kind of artificial intelligence that is sustainable and ecological at its core. Okay, so I have more structures that emerge in the graph. If I click on the Essence tab here in the Analytics panel, I will see the main topical groups. So Infra Notice is giving me live visual feedback on what I'm writing about. Here it says I'm writing about artificial intelligence and natural intelligence, ecological and sustainable core, and what I'm interested about. Okay, and then in the Insight panel, it recommends me what kind of direction I could take to think further about my ideas. So for example, here, what is it that is interesting for me in the context of sustainable development and ecological development? I can write some other idea, like for instance, it seems like natural intelligence has ecological dynamics and sustainable, like natural intelligence has ecological and sustainable development built in. So here I'm throwing this idea inside, adding it into the graph. And for instance, let's say that these are all the ideas I had. I expanded them with the help of the visual feedback, the visual network that I see in front of myself. And now I'm a little bit stuck. Let's say I have a writer's block and I don't know what else to write about. So Infra Notice has a very nice feature that allows you to source the outside data that relates to the topic that you're interested in. In this case, for instance, let's say that I want to see the most influential terms. So for example, artificial intelligence, okay? And then I click import and I import Google search results for this query. So Infra Notice right now will take the top 40 search results for the query of artificial intelligence and show me what is the existing discourse on this subject, what people are writing about that. And it will just expose this graph with the ideas that I just created and show me how they relate and what's different. So I can see what else I could get inspired from and what else I could introduce into the text that I'm writing. So for example, here it gives me an overview of what exists out there on the topic of artificial intelligence. In fact, a nice thing to do, first step, is just to delete the most obvious terms so you can see what's happening behind them. And here I see that, okay, when people talk about artificial intelligence, they talk about computer science. So I can add this into my ideas. In order to do this, I select the nodes, and here I have not anymore the editor panel, but the interpret panel, which allows me to add some ideas from the outside sources into my original graph. So I will save this. Computer science is just a note to myself that I need to mention something about computer science when I'm writing about artificial intelligence, or maybe to even see how my ideas could be connected to whatever algorithms already exist in computer science. And then also machine, human intelligence. So I can click on those nodes and see in which context they're used. So for example, here, I can see that human machine intelligence, so it's something about pursuing computing advances to create intelligent machines that complement human reasoning. So I can even write this as an idea. The usual approach in artificial intelligence is to complement human reasoning. Okay, I add this idea. And just to show you what it creates, I can click here on the result. And now I have a view of the ideas I had plus the notes that I took. And here they are two different structures on the graph. So for example, I can see that human reasoning complementing with artificial intelligence. I can add these nodes back into the graph and see there is one cluster flying out. Okay, computer science. So then I could also ask myself, and that is also asked here in the recommendation panel in the Insight tab of Analytics. What's the connection between computer science and how human reasoning can be complemented? What is it that artificial intelligence does that can complement human reasoning? So I can say that artificial intelligence has the capacity to expand our abilities to deal with data. For instance, I'm just improvising now. Add this into the graph, then this will make a new connection, and then I can continue exploring this idea, make some notes of, for example, computer science, how it relates to artificial intelligence. I'm just going to select this, make the connection, so I remember later in my text to link those two terms together. Then, for instance, I was also writing about natural intelligence. So here I can find in which context I was writing about natural intelligence. And let's say I would like to also import Google search results for this query. So I click again, natural intelligence. Let's see what people are searching, what they actually find when they look for natural intelligence. What are the patterns that come up? We can see that, for instance, there's something surprising about gas. So let's see, okay, gas markets. Okay, so you can visually navigate the graph and see what exists in the search results that doesn't exist yet in your text, but there is a really great feature that allows you to do this automatically. If you click on the inside, it shows you here what's missing in the current graph. So what is in Google search results, but not in the original text that you're writing. And here we can see these 4 terms, so we can click reveal and see actually what exists in Google search results for this query that doesn't exist yet in the text that we're writing. And we should be aware that this is 2 search queries, artificial intelligence and natural intelligence. So for example, here we see that the idea of, let's say, research, leading research. Okay, so I can click on the terms and see how they're used in which context. And then let's explore further. So for example, we can reset this and then see that, okay, there is something about the markets, market intent. So what is it about market intent? Intent marketing. So we can save it into our graph, go to the original graph, to the original text that we're creating, market intent, and write some new idea inside. So for example, artificial intelligence is used to estimate intent in marketing to improve sales. Let's say we add this idea. We can expand it further by saying, for instance, in fact, here it's recommending us what we could think further. So we click on the Insight panel. We see that there is a structural gap between these 2 topics. We can reveal the gap and see which 2 topics Infra Notice proposes us to connect. One is expanding the human capacity, and another one is sustainable ecological development. Let me explain maybe what is the principle of identifying the structural gap. So the idea here is that Infra Notice is trying to maintain some sort of balance in the in the text, in the graph that you are creating. This measure, there is a technical description of it. If you click here, you can read about how it works in a more technical way. But basically what it does is that it looks at the structure of the graph. And if the graph is too connected, for example, it proposes you to connect things that are not yet connected. It's just like ideas. You know, we talked a lot about artificial intelligence, but we started talking about two new things here, how it expands our capacity to think, to act, and sustainable development. And these two topics were underdeveloped. So this is why Infra Notice is proposing us to make a connection between those two. If I click on Reveal the Gap, like I did here, it will automatically show me here, statements to link, which two statements I could link with a new idea or a new research question. In this case, one was, it seems like natural intelligence has ecological and sustainable development. So this idea of natural intelligence being ecological and sustainable, but at the same time, artificial intelligence expanding our abilities. So maybe we can say that it could be interesting to think of the kind of artificial intelligence that, while extending human abilities, also factors in the ecological implications of its actions. Say, yeah, we make a new connection here. So these two topics are connected. We can extend it even more. How can artificial intelligence be ecological and sustainable at its core? Here, it's interesting that it proposes us to connect the ability to expand human capacity and marketing intent. So we can say that, okay, maybe artificial intelligence doesn't have to have as its value function the profit, but also how sustainable its propositions are. So for example, something like this. I'm not concerned too much with making the text sound coherent, just brainstorming, throwing ideas inside. And here it's continuing to recommend me stuff, and each time it adjusts based on the structure of the network. So if the network is too interconnected, it's going to propose to me to think in some new directions, to explore periphery. If the network is not connected enough, then it's going to propose to me to make connections between the important topics I'm talking about. So for example, here you see it identifies the structural gap, which is between these two stuff. It's the two things that exist in our discourse, but are not yet connected. And when we did a research on how graphs affect perception and how they can change the way we think, we found out that when you propose this kind of visual feedback to people, when you propose to them to make connections between things that they talked about but didn't yet relate, this is usually where the new ideas occur. This is where people have this eureka moment, that they imagine something new, creative, generating some new stuff and ideas. So here it shows us again that artificial intelligence is used to estimate intent in marketing. So there is the connection between the intent marketing measurements and how it could also be ecological. So maybe artificial intelligence can also be not only about selling as much as possible, but also developing strategies for making the consumption process sustainable in time. So that could be another idea that we could add into our text. As you see, as I'm adding stuff into the graph, the recommendation changes. And the whole process is basically this back and forth between looking at the main patterns, like for example here, checking out which topics we have, what are the most influential terms, developing those ideas, and then going into the insight panel and looking for the connections that we could make that we didn't yet make. And what I like to do also is when I see a graph, let's say here, I know it's about artificial intelligence, so I delete those nodes. to see what's hiding behind them and to explore more the topics that I didn't yet develop fully, which will be shown here on the graph. You see, so here we're talking again about linking this idea of marketing intent to extending human development. And this is how we bring in the existing discourse into what we're interested in, making connections between those two, and developing, discovering new ideas. When we're finished, we can always open this text and then either start writing here with the live visual feedback provided to us, or we can also export it as a text, and then this will enable us to see how we can develop it further. So this is it in a nutshell. I'm going to answer some questions now. I see there is a few there. And if you feel like asking something, if something was not clear, if you would like me to demonstrate something, please let me know. I also want to let you know that we have the new support portal up. I'm going to post it now into the chat, the link to it, and it has a forum and also a very extended knowledge section where this use case is actually also explained step by step. So if you go there and then if you go into the section called how to use Infra Notice, developing ideas, you will see this process is explained step by step, so you can open it and try it out with your own ideas following the tutorial. Now I'm going to answer some questions. So for example, Cohen is asking, when you do Google search results, is it only looking for your key search terms, or does it take any information from the graph also in consideration? No, actually it only looks into the terms that you selected. So for example, whatever actually exists in the editor pane, when you click the import Google search results, that's what it's going to search for. So for example, if I click sustainable ecological development, and I click search here, it's only going to search for sustainable ecological development. So this is how it works. Let me look into more questions. Have some in the Q&A. So Adriana is asking, can I try this tool? Yes, you can. If you go to infranodus.com, that's where you can find it and sign up. Leo is asking, is using many small notes more beneficial than using one large text? Yes, I would say so, definitely, because when you use the small notes, it allows you to have a representation of your thought which is more granular with a higher resolution, and you can quickly see how different statements connect to each other. So it's a little bit like emulating a conversation with somebody. At the beginning, when you just start to create ideas, it's nice to have a general overview of the singular ideas that comprise the multiplicity of what you're thinking about. Later, let's say you wrote the text, you can put it into Infra Notice, visualize it as a graph. This will give you a more general idea of what your text is about. So it really depends on the stage of the process, but I would say that at the beginning of developing an idea, it's nice to have this granular representation of it. And then, of course, gradually you can increase or decrease resolution so that you're more focused on the actual stuff that you're writing about. So Neluka is writing that she tried using before but had some issues. She wanted to import many notes from interviews and analyze each question as well as how the answers together relate. Yeah, it's totally possible to do this. How to do this? Well, the easiest way is to just copy and paste all the text into the new graph. So for example, you would go here and then you would add a new text, and just import it there. Copy and paste, and then it will be visualized. Another way is to import a CSV file here, and then you can do the same thing. Visualize a CSV file, choose the column where you have the answers, for instance, and visualize only that column. And that would enable you to see what are the patterns in the interview answers that you have. I hope it's clear. Jury is asking, I would be interested to see what would you get for search term artificial intellect or human intellect. Great, let's try to do this. Or maybe even human intellect. And then I'm going to also demonstrate to you some really nice features that I didn't show yet. So normally how I like to do that, if the search query is quite general, you can go into the SEO app. So that's right here, once again, SEO, search engine optimization. And then you type in your search query. And what this app does is that it imports automatically two graphs. One is the graph of Google search results for the query. Another one is the graph of the terms that people tend to use when they search for this query. And this only works for more general requests. So I'm not sure if something like this exists for human intellect. It does. Okay, so then I can demonstrate to you how it works. Basically, what it does here is that it visualizes these two graphs. One is what people search for. So it's the search queries they use next to human intellect. And another one is the graph of the Google search results. So you have two graphs. One is the graph of the supply of information, what exists out there, and the other one is the graph of demand. And then we have a really nice feature here, missing keywords, which shows you what people search for, but what they don't find. So here, in the context of human intellect, we can see that people search for PDFs. So if you wanted to create content in this direction that would be interesting for users, then making some PDFs is apparently something that people specifically search for, but they don't find. So it's something about the format of how you could present your information. And then let's say here, test type. So what is this? Types of intelligent test, different types of intelligent tests. So also people search for different kinds of tests of intelligence. And it means that if you wanted to create content or to develop this idea, it would make sense to talk about all the different tests that exist because people are searching for it, but it's not something they find. So this would be a really great tool to expand further on the ideas that you have. For instance, in our original example, I could continue my process of ideation on the topic of artificial intelligence. If I type it in here and then do the same operation for this topic to see what people search for, but what they don't find. And as you can see here, it shows me that people search for negative effects of artificial intelligence. So I can even add it into my keyword ideas. And they also search for PDFs, okay. Stocks, okay, so something about AI stocks. That can be interesting for the development of our ideas. So I will write here artificial intelligence. By the way, you can use hashtags and words also to write about stuff. And let's say they also talk about disadvantages. So we see that actually people are quite concerned with the possible negative effects of artificial intelligence, and they want to know more about it. So that means that if we were to create content or to write a text about artificial intelligence, it would be useful for us to take this into account and to introduce it into our discourse, because the demand is there, but the supply is not there. So this is how we find the informational niche that is unfulfilled, that we could fulfill with our proposition and connect to something that people search for, but that they don't yet find. By the way, you can also go from here into this graph comparison feature, open the original text we're working on, and add these terms into your text. So for example, negative effects of artificial intelligence. Add it here as an idea. And also I think we had something here, they're shown with the blue. Advantages, yeah, stocks. So maybe let's write that we want to add also something about disadvantages of artificial intelligence, and also something about stocks in artificial intelligence. What we write about this, we can figure out later. But when we look at the text once again, we will see that we have quite a developed structure with a lot of different topics that we can explore. So maybe it makes sense to write something about the negative effects of artificial intelligence and to connect it to our discourse and making it more sustainable. So I can also add this idea even in the same phrasing sense to write about the negative effects of artificial intelligence and the importance of ecological and sustainable approach. So that allows us to see how we can link our discourse to what people are searching for and make it more relevant. In a way, it can also be used to infiltrate any discourse with whatever agenda you have. So it depends how you want to use this tool. One thing is if you want to promote some important, interesting, good ideas. Another one is if you want to sell more of a certain product, but it can be used for all of those, and it's a pretty powerful feature that I invite you to try out. Jury is asking if you can import Twitter for a specific user. Yeah, you can do that. There is a Twitter application inside the platform. So if you click here, artificial, you said for a user. So maybe I'm just going to type in the user, our user, Nodus Labs, that's us on Twitter. So we can see a visualization of what we're tweeting about. The thing is that by default, it takes only the most popular tweets. So for smaller accounts like ours, it might actually make sense to get some more specific granular information. So here you have a much more specific import feature from Twitter. And then you type in Nodus Labs. This is our account on Twitter. And let's say we want to add the most recent tweets with the terms above. We don't want to show originating Twitter accounts. You actually can switch this on, and then you will see the social network of people tweeting about this. But we just want to see what they're tweeting about. And then we process both hashtags and words. You can also just choose to process hashtags, and then you click that. It will take some time and visualize the results for you. So these are the most important things that we wrote about. There were something about feedback loops. Okay. So that would be basically the way that this works. Now I will go to the next question. Audrey is asking if there is a way to tag notes with the owner names. I tried using with the answers of Q&A and would like to highlight how people are linked through concept they mentioned. Yeah, I mean, so there are some hacks that you can use to do that. For instance, the way that you could make it happen, I think, is like this, that you go into settings, and there is a setting here for you to use a mention sign. That right now, mention signs will just be treated as nodes. But you can also make a setting that the mention sign is removed, and then each hashtag or word is connected to the mention, but not to each other. You can also just keep it the way it is. It depends on what kind of shape of data you have. But in general, what you could do is to have a text with the question. So here I would need to set up process both hashtags and words. So this is what you need to set on. And then you add a new text. And for example, you have an answer. Let's say, I thought this idea was very interesting. And then if you want to link it to a specific person, then you use a mention sign. And this would be one way to have this person always linked to the answers that she gave. And then if Alice also, after that, she said something about, I think it's a dangerous idea to delegate all power to an AI or something like this. And you see Alice also has this idea connected to her. So this is how you could introduce this element of being able to see which people write about certain stuff. If you don't want to do things manually, you also have some features inside the CSV import setting. When you choose that, you can actually see you have here, I think, an option to separate data into different graphs named after distinct values found in a specific column. So, for example, if you have another column that lists people's names, you could actually build a different graph for each person, and you would be able to see what specific people are talking about. And then when you click on See All Graphs, then you see what they're all talking about at the same time. And that would also include the visualization of the actual names of the people. So you have these different ways. You see here we have the full graph of what we just added, where you can see the different contexts that we use. So this is what people search for, these two. This is what they find. And this is what we're writing about. As you can see, we're actually covering quite important subjects from all this. So this gives us a good feedback that we're actually talking about the stuff that are important in this discourse, while at the same time, of course, trying to bring in something new. The next question is from Jury, asking for a specific period of time. So yeah, you can, I think now, I don't know, I don't remember if we have this already in the production version. No, I think you cannot choose the timing now, but as you can do it for RSS feeds, so you can choose the time here, it shouldn't be so difficult to add it into the system. So if it's a feature that you would like to have, please go to our support portal. In the chat, you have the link. I'm also going to send you here in the Q&A session. And if you go into forum, there is a requested features category. So you can add this as a requested feature, and then it will make it faster for us to get it to the production. Could we link the nodes to an URL? Yeah, I mean, you have it automatically done when you import stuff from Google, for instance. You have the actual URL where it's coming from. So for example, if I select natural intelligence and learning, it's going to select the search results which contain the highest concentration of those terms, and then those search results have the specific links which we can open. If you wanted to have the actual links in the graph, this is not possible. But if you have a specific use case you would like to work on and you need this in the system, please let us know via the support portal what exactly you would like to do. And we will be able to then see if it can be integrated as a feature, as a new feature into the tool. Jury is asking, use PDF. Yes, you can use a PDF also, or maybe he's answering to somebody. Massimo, hello Massimo, nice to see you again. Is it possible to generate a zoomable 3D graph in order to explore the hidden nodes? So right now you cannot do like a 3D graph, it's only a 2D graph, but you can zoom into this graph and explore the nodes. If it's too much information, you also have this filtering feature here that allows you to get rid of the less connected nodes, so you only see the most important stuff. But for instance, in this case, what you have also as a tool is the new button here, reveal the non-obvious. So it gets rid of all the obvious stuff, of all the stuff that are kind of clearly important in this discourse. Artificial intelligence, it's about artificial intelligence. Of course, these will be the big nodes in the graph. And if we delete them, then we see what's hiding behind them. So we see that, okay, artificial is something we already know, so we delete that. Sustainable ecological development. So this is something interesting for us that we see that once we shed off the surface, this is the topics that we get to. Jury is asking, will it preserve the tweets as unit? Yeah, every tweet is preserved as a unit. Justin is saying that this is great. Thank you, Justin. Can I potentially use this tool for viewing the most popular hashtags being used on a specific topic in various social media platforms or websites? Yes, absolutely. This is how you would actually use it. You know, you could track a certain Twitter account. You could make a list on Twitter. It would have to be public though, and import the stuff that people post in this list. So here you have a setting tweets from a user's Twitter list. Then you add the URL of that list, you visualize it, and then you would be able to see what people in this list are tweeting about. And if you choose to track only hashtags, you only see the hashtags. If you choose to see everything that they post, then you would see everything that they post. In fact, on the front page of the site, we have this as a feature. Let me see if I can open it. I know it's here. Okay, just a second. Going to exit the full screen and show you something. So here we have the main page of Infra Notice. If you go to the graphs, you will be able to see here, let's say it's the tweets about coronavirus. So this thing is tracking live every hour the most popular tweets that have the topic of coronavirus inside. And this is how you basically see what the discourse is about. So for example, you see that there is quite a lot about Trump. If you're not interested in that, delete it from the graph, see what else they're talking about. So people are still talking about the high death numbers. You can click on them to see which tweets mention those terms. Okay, and then also something about, let's say here, what is this? It's the Dr. Fauci. Okay, so something that the doctor said. And also people use the word pandemic a lot. And once again, you know, here are the most influential elements: death, pandemic, flu. We know that this discourse is going to be about this stuff, so we can just click this button, see what's hiding behind it. And this is the general procedure with the graph. It's not enough to just look at it and to see what the most important terms are, because most of the time it's going to be quite obvious. But shedding off the most obvious stuff and getting to the latent but important elements of the discourse is what is really interesting in this work. And I invite you to do it this way, actually. You know, if we know that this discourse is about virus, let's delete the virus. Let's see what's hiding behind the virus. Automatically, every time you delete something, the main topics are calculated, so you can see what people are talking about in relation to this topic. And here in the Insight panel, you also have a really interesting new feature, which is the latent topical brokers. And these are the words that are not so frequently mentioned, but they appear very often connecting very influential terms. So it's almost like someone would identify structural gaps. Let's say some people are talking about testing, and also the number of deaths. And someone is proposing an idea which will connect those two in a way that no one else did before. So it's some kind of innovation in the sense of generating ideas in this discourse. And these are the words that are used in those tweets here. So for example, evolve. Let's see what people are tweeting about evolving. You can see that the virus evolving in nature. So it's actually the doctor saying that no scientific evidence that the virus was made in the Chinese lab. Okay, so basically he's talking about the virus, but also about its evolution and nature and science. So it kind of contains a lot of different elements that this discourse already has, but proposes something new to this discourse. And this is why those topical brokers are also really interesting to look at. Going to continue answering questions now. Leo says, thank you so much for answering my question. Thank you for asking. I'm looking to analyze a large amount of separate, small observational notes, I guess. However, I didn't quite understand the use of hashtag and mention in this process, not using Google search results. So basically, the best way to do is just to use the notes as they are, in fact. So just, you know, like if you have notes, let's say I have mine in the Notepad app on my Mac. So I'm just going to copy them all and paste them into the graph. You know, if it's something like artificial intelligence text, and I can even have a few notes like artificial intelligence, keep adding stuff, artificial intelligence, and then I can press Shift Enter, another note, ecological development. And then these two nodes will be added separately. So when you have a list of nodes, then you can copy and paste them into the graph, and automatically they will be processed. You can use hashtags and mentions if you want to be more precise, if you want to build mind maps. So for example, here I'm going to add a new graph, mind map. And let's say that I want to start talking very precisely about certain aspects. I don't know, I can make a graph of the relations of organs in Chinese medicine, for instance, and there I have to be precise. I can say that lungs connected to heart, add this into the graph. Then lungs are important for breathing. And here you see what happens is that it adds both the word and the hashtag. Let's say I don't want to do this. I just want the hashtags and I want the words as the explanation. So I can delete this, go into settings. And here, if you remember, just some time ago, I changed the settings. So I bring it back to the original one. Prioritize hashtags if non-words. And then it means that the system will visualize only the hashtags if they exist in the statement. But if there is no hashtags, then it will do words. So for example, here I can say that lungs are important for breathing. Then I will only have these two things connected: lungs, breathing, not the whole text. The rest of the text is used as the description of this connection, which can be quite good when you start building complex stuff. I can say that, for example, breathing can be affected by, what can it be affected by? By physical exercise. So for example, I can also use the underscore to create phrases here and so on. And the mention sign, you asked about the mention sign. So the way that the mention sign can be used, that I find is pretty powerful, is that if you go into settings again and you say that the mention sign is removed and each hashtag or word is connected to mention but not to each other, what happens here is that you can create graphs even faster. So for example, I can say that, okay, I want the node body, and that will be the main node, connect to heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys. You see, then it creates the connection between the node with the @ sign and all the nodes that were in the statement, but it doesn't connect the nodes to each other. You have different settings that allow you to basically choose exactly how you want Infra Notice to treat this sort of input. But in general, that's very good for making really precise links. Ben is asking if there is a way to show hierarchy between terms. You would need to elaborate what you mean exactly, because hierarchy, where would we take that from? Is this something that is objective, or do we have to choose what kind of hierarchy we would like to have? So maybe you can elaborate and explain to me how you would like to see it. Koshik is writing, I find it extremely useful and interesting tool to help developing our thought process, but it seems it relies on our understanding of available information and source. Well, yes, you could say that it relies on the external, on our existing understanding of information. So you need to have some kind of idea to start working. But the great thing is that it can help you start creating ideas if you know a little bit about a certain subject, but not everything. And so maybe at this point is a useful tool. But you're right that if you just want to learn more about something that you don't know anything about, let's say I want to learn more about quantum physics. In fact, I can do that with the tool, but I would use it in a different way. I would maybe start with the Google app here, and I would say, okay, show me what exists out there on the topic of quantum physics. So I don't need to know before what this topic is about, but now Infra Notice will import Google search results for this query and show me what exists out there on this subject. So for example, I see there is something about mechanics, waves, science, and I can use this graph to explore. You see, you have the topics here. So mechanics, science, understand. I can click on this to see in which context it's used. maybe discover some search results where I can read more about this particular topic because it selects them for me. Then I can see what is the central question of quantum physics, atomic energy matter. So it can also help you to get an overview of a certain topic and then to start thinking further about it. Jury's saying, please try at trail marks. This is the Twitter account, I guess, that you would like to import. Okay, I'm going to try it later. Jury, thank you for your positive feedback. Is there any API to export or import graph data using statements? So you can, there is expert options here. You have in the menu text only, CSV, CSV matrix, GXF if you want to import it into Gephi and visualize it, PNG as an image. You also have here Bigram expert. Here in the trends you have also bigrams, also directed ones. So you have a lot of different options. There is not yet the API that would allow you to query the system with a certain text and get the results for it, but it's something we're working on. And there is also the open source version of it, which is here. If you go on the main page of the site, you can get the link there. And you can actually install it on your own computer. You would need to know some technical details about Neo4j graph database and Node.js. So if you know about this stuff, it works. There is also a Python version which kind of does the same job, which we did with our collaborator Matthias. And I think you have a link here on the GitHub page. You have the link to the Python version, which you could use then to feed the text and get the same data, topics, most influential terms, and so on. Ajahn is asking if the session will be recorded. Yes, it's recorded. It's actually streaming live on YouTube, on our YouTube channel as well. I'm going to send you the link to our YouTube channel so you can see it later. I will also usually, after 2 or 3 days, I make the time code. So if you want to come back to it, you can always look at the time code and see what are the most important topics that we covered in the video. Jury is asking, is it possible to get the data via Neo4j? So, I mean, it works with Neo4j, but it uses a very specific data model. So right now you cannot just plug it in and connect it to Neo4j, but this is something that we were thinking about implementing as a feature so that people could use the same approach, but to any sort of data. This is a little bit difficult because you cannot easily do it for multi-user environment, but if someone would want to install the tool on their system and try to use the same approach on their own data, this could be interesting. So, Jury, if you have an idea for a particular use case where that would be useful, please write to us on the support portal. I will send the link again here and explain what you would like to do. You also can post it on forum. That would be even better because other users could also chip in and explain what kind of features they would like. And then together we can create like a technical requirement and then it would be easier for us to implement it. So that's absolutely doable. And Jack is saying, thank you. There is always new learning for me. Thank you, Jack. It's a pleasure to hear this feedback. And I guess here we covered all the main topics. Thank you all for joining. This will be available on our YouTube channel. And you can always get the account on our main page. I will send it now into the chat. And also, Jury reminds me, he says that he will support the project on Patreon. This is also something that you can do. I will send the link now to our Patreon account. Everyone who supports the project on Patreon gets access to the tool as well. So you can do that also, depending on which way you prefer. I hope it was useful for you. And as I said, this workflow that I demonstrated today is available on our support portal. And I want to invite you also to join in and to participate in the forum discussions, to post your use cases, to post your feature requests, because if we create a vibrant community there, then we will be able to exchange our ideas and works with each other and hopefully help each other move forward. So please register there, go on the support portal and post your questions, ideas, work. And of course, if it's something that is interesting to share, then we will be happy to also use our resources to help you spread the word and spread your work, spread your research with the community. Thank you everyone for joining in. We will stop here. I hope you will have a great day, and we will do this webinar every week on Thursdays. So join in next time. I have your email if you registered for this webinar, so you will receive the invitation. If you want to invite someone else, please do so. I will be very happy to see you again. Thank you very much, and goodbye. I hope to see you again next time.